Back to our channel. Now we are going to start breast or mammary gland. So if you see the mammary gland, it's mainly present in both male and female, but it's rudimentary in male, whereas in female it's well developed. So especially in female it's developed only after the puberty. So it's also called as modified sweat gland. So sweat gland only modified and it's forming a breast or mammary gland. And the nutrition to the newborn, actually why this gland is formed, mainly to give the nutrition to the newborn, especially in the form of milk. So it lies in the superficial fascia. So if you see my before video, you'll understand what is superficial fascia. So it's nothing but if you peel off the skin in a dissection, if you just remove the skin, and after the skin, the layer which is present, some only with some fat cells, that is called as superficial fascia. So the mammary gland lies in the superficial fascia, and it is divided into four quadrants. So how to divide it into four quadrants? For example, this is a mammary gland. So it's divided into four quadrants like this. So this is medial side, this is lateral side. So then this is upper medial, this is upper lateral, right? This is lower medial, this is lower lateral. So this is how you divide the mammary gland into four quadrants. So mainly in the upper lateral there is an extension. So if you see, this is the upper lateral, right? So here will be some extension like this. So there is an extension in the upper lateral that is called as axillary tail of Spence. So axillary tail of Spence. So this extension from upper lateral is called axillary tail of Spence, and it is passing by an opening which is present in deep fascia. So remember, this is in superficial fascia, but it's opening into the deep fascia by piercing the deep fascia, because it's superficial fascia, right? So you can see here the axillary tail of Spence pass by opening in the deep fascia and lie in axilla, and the opening is called foramen of Langer. So it is towards the axilla, and by which opening it is coming, that is called as foramen of Langer. So by means of a foramen, this axillary tail of Spence is opening into the deep fascia, and that is called as foramen of Langer. And this axillary tail of Spence is present in the axilla side. Why? Because you can imagine upper lateral quadrant is of the mammary gland is nothing but it's towards the axilla. So actually vertically, so you can see here vertical image like this. So vertically its position is from second rib to sixth rib. So for example, here you have the rib number 2, second rib, and here you have the sixth rib. You know, at the sixth rib there will be scaphoid joint, right? In thorax videos I already said. So in sixth rib there will be scaphoid joint, and second rib is sternal angle, right? So you can remember, from sternal angle to scaphoid joint or angle, there is vertical arrangement of the mammary gland. So you can see here the vertically it is from second to sixth rib, and horizontally it's from lateral border of sternum to mid axillary line. So you can imagine here will be the sternum, right? And here will be the mid axillary line. Mid axillary line is nothing but the line which we draw from the middle of the axilla, right? So what they are saying, horizontally from the lateral border of sternum. So this is the medial border of the sternum, this is the lateral border. So from the lateral border of the sternum to the mid axillary line, it lies horizontally. Now coming to see the deep relations. So what are the deep relations? There is deep fascia or pectoral fascia. So deep fascia or pectoral fascia, which is covering the pectoralis major muscle, and the mammary gland lie on deep fascia. So this thing you need to understand, it's lying on the deep fascia but not in deep fascia. Already we discussed the mammary gland is in the superficial fascia, means nothing but it is on the deep fascia and it is covering the pectoralis major muscle. In this diagram we can check out that one. So this is pectoralis minor muscle, this is subclavius. In the name itself you can see below the clavicle, so subclavius, and here it is mentioned, you can see pectoral fascia. Pectoral fascia is nothing but just a cover like lining on the pectoralis major muscle. So this is pectoralis major, just a cover like lining on the pectoralis major muscle is our pectoral fascia. And next you have the retromammary space. Retromammary space is a space between the pectoral fascia and the superficial fascia or the mammary gland. So we have understood what and what, right? So deep fascia, on the deep fascia the mammary gland is present. Deep fascia is also called as pectoral fascia. That thing is very important to understand. Deep fascia is also called as pectoral fascia. right? Fascia. So here in this diagram, the pectoral fascia is nothing but called as deep fascia. So now coming to still deeper, there are three muscles, that is pectoralis major. Just now I saw upon the pectoralis major only you have pectoral fascia, and next you have the serratus anterior muscle, and also you have the external oblique muscle. So understand, still going deeper, that is from the deep fascia, if you go more deeper, you will find the three muscles pectoralis major, serratus anterior, external oblique. External oblique is actually a muscle of abdomen. So these are all the muscles which you find in a deeper to the deep fascia. Next, coming to the retromemory space, it's a separate breast from it separates the breast from pectoral fascia. So pectoral fascia is nothing but deep fascia. So from the deep fascia, the mammary gland is separated by means of a retromemory space. The retromemory space is nothing but the loose areolar tissue. So how to understand this? Retromemory. Retro means back. Mammary means the space. Retromemory space, the space which is separating the mammary gland from the pectoral fascia. So in this diagram you can see this is the pectoral fascia and this is the mammary gland. So in between them, this space of loose areolar tissue, this space is nothing but called as retromemory space. So the breast moves freely on the pectoralis major. So because of this presence of retromemory space, the mammary gland can easily freely move on the pectoralis major muscle. Now coming to the structures. So now we will see what are the structures related to it. So first outside you will have the skin, next you will have the parenchyma. The parenchyma is the functional. In any gland or any tissue, if you find the parenchyma, it's the functional unit of that gland or particular tissue. Next, coming to stroma. Stroma is always like a supporting structure. So let us find out what are present in the parenchyma, skin and stroma. So coming to the skin, the skin covers the gland of course and have a conical projection. So the skin is covering the gland and having a conical projection, that is called as nipple. So nipple is below the center of breast. Actually, for example, how to understand this? For example, this is a breast and you could take all the four vertical axis, horizontal axis. So this is center, but below center here you will have somewhere the nipple. So you can always remember below the center only the nipple is present. That is at the rate of fourth intercostal space. So fourth intercostal space is the site where the nipple is present, that is below the center of the mammary gland. So now coming to the nipple, it's pierced mainly by 15 to 20 lactiferous ducts, and they have in turn the circular and longitudinal smooth muscle fibers. So remember, this structure, this nipple structure is pierced by 15 to 20 lactiferous ducts. So 15 to 20 lactiferous ducts are piercing, and in turn this having the circular and longitudinal smooth muscle fibers. And few modified sweat and sebaceous glands are also present. So this is important. Modified sweat, already we know the mammary gland is itself a modified sweat gland, and also there are some sebaceous glands which are useful for producing the oily secretions are also present. So sweat and sebaceous glands are also present, and it is rich in nerve supply and also many sensory end organs at termination of nerve fibers. So it is rich in nerve supply. So there is very huge nerve supply and also many sensory end organs at the termination of nerve fibers. Next, coming to the base of nipple. So if you see the base of nipple, it's mainly pigmented, and that pigmented, for example, this is nipple, so it's base here. If you see here, it's completely I'm forming a shadow like structure. You can see this is all pigmented. The pigmented layer forms a circular area called the areola. So areola is a circular area which is mainly pigmented, and it is also rich in sebaceous glands at outer margin. So it's rich in sebaceous glands but in the outer margin, and enlarged in pregnancy and lactation. So whenever it is enlarged, especially in pregnancy, that is called as Montgomery. So they form the tubercles of Montgomery, and this Montgomery, in the case of Montgomery, the areola will have more oil secretions. Why more oil secretions in Montgomery? Because of lubrication of nipple. And also areola. So they will lubricate the nipple and also areola and prevent from cracking during lactation. So especially in the case of pregnancy, to prevent the nipple and areola from cracking, the Montgomery have more oil secretions from the sebaceous glands so that we can lubricate them. Next, coming to areola. Areola have sweat glands and accessory mammary glands. So if you see, before we talked about the Yeah, we talked about the nipple where they have only modified sweat and sebaceous glands, but in the case of areola, they have sweat glands and also accessory mammary glands. Remember that the sebaceous glands are not so numerous in the case of areola, but in nipple there are more sebaceous glands and sweat glands, but in areola only sweat glands and some accessory mammary glands are also present. And the skin of areola is not having any hair or fat subjacent to it. So always remember there is no fat or no hair in the case of skin of areola. Next, coming to the parenchyma. So by this we completed the skin. What are the structures? So mainly in the skin we have seen that the nipple is present at the below the center, and also it is having both sebaceous glands, sweat glands, whereas coming to areola it's pigmented and it is having mainly only the sweat glands and also accessory mammary glands, and skin of the areola is devoid of hair and no fat. So now we will see the parenchyma. Parenchyma is the main functional unit of any gland or the cell. So first we will start with parenchyma. So parenchyma is made up of mainly glandular tissue. You can see here the glandular tissue. And one more thing we need to remember, that 15 to 20 lactiferous ducts are piercing the nipple. So in this diagram if you see, these are the lactiferous ducts. So the lactiferous ducts are like 15 to 20. You can see lactiferous sinuses are also present. Actually the lactiferous ducts at their somewhat inward, they have some sinuses, those are called as lactiferous sinuses. And if you see this glandular cells, these are nothing but the lobes, which are 15 to 20 lobes. So this 15 to 20 lobes, you can see here the lactiferous duct, the lactiferous sinus, alveolar acini. About this acini I will discuss later. Actually the alveolar acini are present inside these lobes. If you see these lobes, right, these lobes are made up of alveolar acini, and from here only the milk will collect and come to the lactiferous sinus, and by means of the duct it will come out through the nipple. So that one thing is important is 15 to 20 lactiferous ducts are piercing the nipple. So now we are at parenchyma, right? So parenchyma, if you see, it's mainly made up of glandular tissue and it secretes the milk. So the glandular tissue, which is the main functional cell, it's present in the parenchyma to mainly secrete the milk. So the gland have 15 to 20 lobes. So these lobes, as I discussed just now, this 15 to 20 lobes are present in parenchyma. So before we discuss skin, so in the skin you will find this lactiferous ducts, nipple, whereas in the main parenchyma you will find out this lobes, 15 to 20 lobes, same like ducts. Ducts are also 15 to 20, even the lobes are also 15 to 20. So each lobe is a cluster of alveoli and chained by lactiferous ducts. So if you see the lobe is nothing but the cluster of alveoli. You can see here this alveoli, they're like lung alveoli, right? So this alveoli are only clustered inside these lobes, and from there only the milk will pass to the sinus and next to the duct and come out. So if you see the alveolar acini, this lactiferous sinus, lactiferous duct. So alveolar acini are myoepitheliocytes. They have myoepitheliocytes. All those we'll discuss. So if you see, each lobe is cluster of alveoli chained by lactiferous ducts converge towards the nipple and open on it near its termination, and each duct has dilation called lactiferous duct. So at the site of termination they have the lactiferous sinus, which is the dilation of the lactiferous duct, especially at the site of opening. So again you can see each lobe is cluster of alveoli chained by lactiferous ducts converge towards nipple and open on it near its termination, and each duct has dilation called lactiferous sinus. Now let us see resting phase. Actually, according to the phases of the duct, we have the epithelium which is lining it. For example, if you see in the resting phase, in the normal resting phase, the alveolar epithelium is mainly cuboidal. So inside the alveoli, that is inside the lobes, as we discussed, 15 to 20 lobes are present in parenchyma. Inside that lobe we have the alveoli, and in that alveoli also we have epithelium, right? That epithelium is changing according to the activity of the lobes. For example, in the resting phase, the alveolar epithelium is mainly cuboidal. Why it is cuboidal? Due to stretching. Yeah, so if you see here, the alveolar epithelium is cuboidal mainly in resting phase. And next, coming to columnar, whenever it's in lactation phase. So in lactation phase it will be columnar. So you can remember like why they're columnar. Columnar means they will be at the side so that there is a way for the passage of milk. But whenever there are like cuboidal means whole of the way is closed. As the way is closed, so the milk cannot be come out. So whenever it's columnar, there is more space so that the milk can come out. So during lactation, the alveolar epithelium is columnar, whereas during resting phase, the alveolar epithelium is cuboidal. And smaller ducts are lined by columnar epithelium, and some smaller ducts which are present, they are lined by columnar epithelium. Now coming to terminal parts, the terminal parts of lactiferous ducts are lined by stratified squamous keratinized epithelium. This is important point again. Now we are not talking about the phases like resting phase or active stage, just we are talking about the terminal parts of the lactiferous duct, which are mainly lined by stratified squamous keratinized epithelium. And passage of milk from the alveoli to the ducts is mainly facilitated by contraction of myoepitheliocytes found around alveolar ducts between the epithelium and basement membrane. So as we said, the terminal parts are lined by stratified squamous keratinized epithelium, and also this passage of milk from the alveoli through to the ducts is facilitated by contraction of myoepitheliocytes, and these myoepitheliocytes are present in alveoli, they are also present in ducts, and they are also present between the epithelium and the basement membrane. So because of this myoepitheliocytes only, there is contraction of the ducts, and also there is contraction of mainly lobes, alveolar acini, and finally the milk is coming out from the nipple. Now coming to the stroma. So we have completed the parenchyma. Always stroma is nothing but the supporting structure, supporting framework. So it's partly fibrous and partly fatty. So the stroma is partly fibrous and also partly fatty. So what is that fibrous part doing? What is that fatty part doing? Let us see. So fibrous stroma mainly form. So as we said, it's partly fibrous, partly fatty. So fibrous part of the stroma is mainly forming the septa. That septa is called suspensory ligament of Cooper, which anchor the skin and the gland to pectoral fascia. So if you see here, the skin and the gland both are attached to the pectoral fascia mainly because of the ligaments which are present here. For example, you can draw like this. These ligaments are nothing but called as suspensory ligaments of Cooper, and they are mainly formed by the stroma. They are formed by the stroma's fibrous part. So stroma's fibrous part form the suspensory ligament of Cooper's. They anchor the skin and also gland to the pectoral fascia so that they will not be not be detached. So this is about the fibrous stroma. Now fatty stroma, what it does? Fatty stroma mainly forms main bulk of the gland. So the main bulk of the gland is formed by fatty stroma, and it is distributed in the mammary gland except the areola and nipple. So except at the areola, as we already discussed before, that there is no fat, no hair, it's devoid of hair and fat. There is nothing but the areola and nipple. As the areola and nipple doesn't have any hair and it doesn't have any fat, so the fatty stroma only form the stroma bulk of the gland, especially in the mammary gland, but not in the areola and nipple. Now we will see the blood supply. So blood supply, you can see, as we said already, it's heavily vascularized, and also heavily many nerves are also giving its branches to our mammary gland. So and also it's extremely vascular, means many blood vessels are also coming to it. So first one is what are supplying the mammary gland. So first you have the internal thoracic artery. So internal thoracic artery is nothing but a branch of subclavian artery by its perforating branches. So remember, internal thoracic artery is a branch of subclavian artery. We will see the diagram and understand this. So as you can see here, this is a perforating branch of internal thoracic artery. So it's a branch of subclavian artery. It supplies mainly this, you can see the side of the lateral side of the sternum, right? So or else you can say the lateral side of the mammary gland. So it's mainly supplied by the internal thoracic artery, which is internal branch of subclavian artery. And especially its perforating branches, you can see here it's mentioned perforating branches are mainly supplying it. Next, coming to the lateral thoracic, you have thoracic artery. Thoracic artery is in turn giving three branches, that is the superior thoracic, the acromiothoracic, the lateral thoracic. You can see lateral thoracic, acromiothoracic, superior thoracic. So these three branches, right, are the branches of in turn axillary artery. So lateral thoracic, superior thoracic, acromiothoracic, or also called as thoracoacromial, are the branches of axillary artery, and the lateral branch of posterior intercostal artery. They also supply the you can see the branches from posterior intercostal artery. So they all supply the mammary gland. So the branches like subclavian artery branches, you can say like that also. Subclavian artery branches, axillary artery branches, posterior intercostal artery. These three are mainly supplying the mammary gland. So it's highly vascular. So next points you can see here. You can see arteries converge on the breast and distributed to the anterior surface, but the posterior surface is avascular. Yeah, of course you can say this is the anterior surface, right? Posterior you can imagine backside. So anterior side is mainly avascular, but posterior side, if you see the posterior side, it's mainly avascular. And you can see this green, right? These are nothing but the suspensory ligament of Cooper, which is making skin and the gland intact with the pectoral fascia, right? So next we will see our veins. Yeah, so veins are nothing but are following the artery. As the artery is the same, the veins also follow the same pathway. They first converge towards the base of the nipple and form the anastomotic venous. So they form anastomotic venous circle, from where veins run in superficial and deep cells. So from where the veins run in superficial and deep cells. So superficial vein chain into the internal thoracic vein. For example, now imagine them as veins. So this is internal thoracic vein. Then the superficial vein will come and drain into the internal thoracic vein, and the superficial veins of lower part of neck, and also they drain to the superficial veins of lower part of neck. So again, superficial veins drain into internal thoracic vein and also to the superficial veins of lower part. This is neck, right? So in the lower part of neck also they will drain. And next coming to the deep veins. Deep vein also drain into the internal thoracic axillary veins and also to the posterior intercostal veins. So that thing you remember, mainly the superficial veins drain into internal thoracic vein. The deep veins also drain into internal thoracic vein but also drain into the posterior intercostal veins. So that's it. Now finally coming to the nerve supply. So if you see the nerve supply, mainly the anterior and lateral cutaneous branch of 4 to 6 intercostal nerve. I will show the diagram also. So if you check out this diagram, already I have shown this in superficial fascia, right? So anterior and lateral cutaneous branches. So you can see here, these are the anterior cutaneous nerves and these are the lateral cutaneous nerves, right? These are the branches of 4 to 6 intercostal nerves. Actually, this upper one is a supraclavicular nerve, right? This is a cutaneous nerve branch, and these are the mainly our intercostal nerves branches. So 4 to 6, like anterior and lateral cutaneous branches of 4 to 6 intercostal nerve mainly supply this area, right? And the nerves convey the sensory fibers to the skin and autonomic fibers to the smooth muscles and to the blood vessels. So nerves, always remember, nerves don't control the secretion of milk. That is very important. And the secretion is mainly controlled by hormone. Which hormone? Prolactin. And from where it's related, if you see our physiology videos, you can understand prolactin is coming from the pars anterior or the anterior pituitary, right, of hypophysis cerebri. So by this we have completed our first part of mammary gland or breast anatomy. We have discussed up to the nerve supply. Next we'll start with the lymphatic drainage and also with the development of breast. Next we'll see deep pectoral fascia, muscles of pectoral region, finally the clinical anatomy. So by that we'll complete this chapter. Next we'll move on to axilla chapter.